Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a good one today. I'm Nick, and today I'm going to be ranking the Underworld movies from worst to best. I have personally been a fan of this franchise since the early 2000s, since the first movie was released. I like the whole lore behind the vampires and the Lycans and their whole war and history about it. It's just real interesting. I love Kate Beckinsale, so her being the main lead in this is awesome. And without wasting any more time, let's dive right into these films. So kicking off my ranking with number 5, and just a heads up guys, this is going to be a pretty controversial ranking. I think I'm going to piss a few people off with this one, especially with my number 5. But here it goes. At number 5, I got Underworld Evolution. Now, I know this is kind of a fan favorite for the sequels. Like, everybody really likes this sequel. It was a great follow-up to the original. But for me, it just never quite worked for me. I mean, Evolution does have a great continuation. It picks up right off where the original ended, and we just continue that story, which I really appreciate. We learn more about the elders, Marcus, William, and their father Cornelius, the first werewolf, the first vampire, and their father. We also learn about Celine's background when she was a child and a little bit more about her and her family. And that's one thing this franchise is great at. World building, the lore, the mythology, all that is great in here. We get a hot and heavy sex scene with Celine and Michael in a storage container, which I have no choice but to put into the positives here. And really, Celine, Kate Beckinsale, steals the show again like she does in every one of these movies. She's just so fantastic in the role. But one thing that always kind of bothers me in this is the Marcus character. I just see a man in a rubber suit. I know he's supposed to be like this intense looking vampire, but I could just never buy it. It just looks way too fake for me, and it kind of takes me out of his scenes. And of course, all the CGI blood and that is real distracting, but I can't really fault this movie for that, because basically all these movies are guilty of that. Whether you're talking about the CGI blood when they get sliced and going flying, or when we're seeing the Lycans or whatnot, when they're not going practical and they use CGI, it sticks out like a sore thumb. And another thing that really gets me is the Michael character. He's the hybrid. At the ending of part 1, he set up like such a powerful character, right? And I feel like a lot of the franchise was set on his shoulders. But when this movie comes along, I feel like he kind of gets put to the back burner a little bit. He still has some cool scenes in that, but I felt like he had such a build-up in the original that this one kind of fell flat with his character. Like I said, he still has some pretty intense moments, like when he rips William's face in half and stuff at the very end. But even after this film in the franchise, he's barely even in it anymore, where I feel it's a shame because he was set up so great in the original. One last thing I'd like to touch on is the family aspects of this film. It's real interesting to me, like Cornelius being the father of William and Marcus, but he's strong enough to kill them off, but he just won't do it because it's his sons, and you know, family's more important than whatever the hell they're doing, and he would never be able to hurt his family, which is real ironic because Victor killed his own daughter, even though he acts like he loved her so much. And then he says he likes Celine like a daughter too, but yeah, he's still trying to kill her now. And I just found that real interesting how with one family, no matter how bad they are in that, they don't want to hurt their own family members, right? Whether it be your brother or your father. Where on the vampire side with Victor, it's the complete opposite. If you screw him over, it doesn't matter if you're family, it doesn't matter if you're his daughter, you're done. Now, coming in at number 4, guys, we got Underworld Awakening. This one I figured would be last place easily before I went through these movies again on rewatch, because in the past, this has always been my least favorite. But for some reason on this last rewatch, I kind of dug it a bit. Like, it's not a masterpiece or nothing. I still rate it like a 7 out of 10, but I just had a really good time with it this time. I like the whole idea of humans trying to do a mass extinction, like wiping out all the vampires and lycans once they find out about them. And it just adds like a whole nother element into these films, because before, the humans kind of didn't know what was going on. They didn't even know that vampires or werewolves existed. We get a 12 years jump in the future, which really changes our story here. Celine was frozen the whole time. When she unthaws and tries to figure out what's going on, we find out she has a daughter who is a hybrid as well. The Lycans will stop at nothing to get her blood. You know, she's the last bloodline to the elders. So the vampires don't really want to get involved because they know that they're already in a war against the lycans. So I like that whole storyline. Again, unfortunately, they kill off Michael right away in this flick, so he's done for now in this franchise. And like I said with my last entry, that it's just a shame because I feel like he should be up there with Celine in this franchise, but no, it's only kind of in the first flick they kind of set him up that way by the end, and then the rest of the franchise, Celine steals the show every time, which I'm not mad at. I do enjoy Kate Beckinsale. I just find it's a shame to kill off the Michael character. But we get a lot of Celine kicking ass to try to protect her daughter, and it's violent, it's gory, and some great action pieces in here, which I have failed to see on my previous watches of this flick. I guess I was so held up about the other things like killing off Michael and that. But now that the dust has settled, I kind of enjoy all the rest. And the main lycan in this has been injecting himself, and he's just getting crazier and stronger throughout, which is kind of interesting, but he is fairly forgettable, I will admit. At the end of the day, no one's going to be talking about this villain. Kicking off the top three, we got Underworld Blood Wars. Now, this is another flick I never understood the hate for. When it released, it didn't get that good of reviews or reception. Even now, it has like a 5.5 out of 10 online. And I just don't see that. I have a great time with this flick. Even when it released, I thought it was good. And I just couldn't believe all the reception it was getting. We get lots of deception, lots of twists, backstabbing all throughout the story, which is really something we never really got since the original flick, which I really appreciate. They're finally bringing back that more mystery and the more like, oh shit, you're following this character and they turn out to be bad, and I like that type of stuff. And it's been a lot more straightforward with the sequels, except for this one. Celine deep down is dealing with an abundance of loss and grief, whether you're talking about her lover being killed off, her whole covenant, and everything's gone. Her daughter is hidden. She doesn't know where she is, and she doesn't want to know where she is in case someone tries torturing her or taking her blood. Then they could find out exactly where she's hiding. Because again, the lycans want her daughter in this, and they believe Celine knows where she is, but she really doesn't. And I really love the northern white-haired vampires in this flick, like up in the snow in the north. It just adds so much more to the mythology. We got these different sections on Earth, or these different covenants, right? They're so different from each other, yet they're all still vamps. But these ones have kind of like special powers. They like go into this world in between the living and the dead, and when they come back, they're more powerful than ever. And obviously they do this with Celine, and it just makes her more badass. Puts some white in her hair. She can like basically teleport around the room now, and I just love it, and I would love to see a future sequel continuing this story. This one was the last entry. They did a very good job of wrapping everything up nicely. There's not too many loose ends, but at the same time, they're able to continue this story very easily. I don't want remakes or nothing like that. Continue this great story that we have, especially now that Celine's an elder herself, which there's so much you can talk about with that. But again, our main villain for the lycans is fairly generic and forgettable again. But as a whole, this is a definite watch for me. At number 2, we got Underworld Rise of the Lycans. Now this is basically a prequel. It's set centuries ago, before all the other entries. It's kind of an origin story for Lucian a bit, but we also get Victor and all them in here too. And this is where we get to see the tragic love story between Lucian and Sonia, and her demise by her father Victor, which we've only heard about in the other flicks, but we finally get to see the whole story play out in this one. And it also shows how the lycans all came together as one. There were some wild ones, there was some that were slaves to the vampires, and yeah, they had to start a revolt. This is basically like Spartacus set in a different time with vampires and lycans. That's basically what it is. There's a few differences, but the main concept is a lot like Spartacus. And honestly, it's a nice change in the series. We're changing up the time, the setting, and we get to learn a lot more about our side characters. We do not get Celine in this one, like for like a minute at the start and the end. So I feel like since she's such a star in all the other flicks, it was kind of cool to focus on other characters in this one. And aside from all that, this has some of the best action sequences in the franchise for me. We get some actual big scale war battles. We get some more smaller scale scenes of action, like when they're breaking out of the prison, getting all the slaves free. And I just think it's all really engaging and fun to watch. The only thing that kind of bugged me about this movie is the ending with Victor getting stabbed in the face and that. But then he just like walks it off, where I don't really understand the rules for these vampires. I know they're immortal and you basically got to cut their heads off to kill them. But then there's other vampires that seem to die so easily, if you know what I mean. Like, for instance, in the original, when they're on the train cart and Amelia gets killed and she's like one of the elders. I feel like she dies so easy. Like, I don't know. I know they had like UV bullets and stuff in those films, but it just always kind of bugged me how Victor had like the whole sword going on the back of his head and that, and then he just pretty much wipes off the blood and his next scene and he's fine. And Victor's daughter, Sonia, she does really look like Celine. Like, it's the lips. I don't know what it is, but they look very similar. They could pass as sisters, her and Kate Beckinsale. But easily coming in the first place for me is Underworld, the original from 2003. This was a favorite of mine in my teen years, and it still is today. It's almost 20 years old now. It just does an excellent job with the world building and the mythology and lore. It just lays it all out there for you. But it's done in a very mysterious way. We're slowly picking up the pieces along the story. You're not even sure who's on what side. Like, you know, who's good, who's bad, who's evil. But as the story goes along, we start to uncover more and more. It really depends on what point of view the story's being told from, right? The understanding if it's facts or if they're just covering up the past. There's so much collusion and backstabbing in that I just enjoy the hell out of it. And the fact that you can drink someone's blood and have all their memories run through your brain. It's like, there's no lying. If you screw up, I'm just going to bite you and find out the truth. I think that is genius. Everything from the weapons to the UV bullets, to the silver bullets, to those crazy things Celine shoots with the blades on them. It's all so cool. Plus their guns, their looks, they're all in leather and stuff. The mansion with all the vampires, all super sexy. Even the way that these vampires hibernate like underground and only one comes up every so many centuries. I'm in love with the lore of this franchise. And this is some really underrated casting here. Like, great performances all around, whether we're talking about our main leads or even our side characters. I think even our side characters are so unique and well written that you don't forget about them as well. Like, the side characters for the lycans, or even some people we see in the mansion just for a little bit, they stick with you. Of course, I already talked about Kate Beckinsale as Celine. She always does a phenomenal job. Bill Nye as Victor. Man, I wouldn't want anybody else playing him. He is Victor to me. And no matter what I see him in, whether it's Shaun of the Dead or whatnot, I always see him as Victor because he just slayed this role. The dude who played Michael too as the hybrid did a great job. Like I said, all the side characters too, flawless. They're all unique and memorable in their own ways. We get really cool cinematography in this. It almost has that Dean Cundy look. It's all like dark blue throughout. Of course, it's nighttime most of this flick because of the vampires. And it's raining. And I feel like that just sets a whole nother mood to this flick. And it adds to it for sure. And in the end, this was just a really fresh, modern take to the vampire werewolf genre. I feel like they stepped outside the box with this one and did their own thing, which I really appreciate. Even the soundtrack is badass in here. We get that very early 2000s soundtrack where there was like a little bit of techno mixed with like metal in that. And as I stated before, guys, I would be totally down with more sequels to this franchise, even though as time ticks on, I have a feeling it's never going to happen. They might make a remake one of these days, but I really just want to continue this story. So there you have it, guys. There's my ranking for the Underworld films, all 5 of them. I know my ranking is not the right ranking, and it's not your ranking, most likely. Even though there's 5 of these, I am almost certain no one watching this is going to have the same 5 movies in the places I have them in my ranking. Especially Evolution being last place instead of Awakening and that. A lot of you probably will have the original as number 1 because it is just so badass and such a classic in every way. So I want to hear your guys' thoughts in the comment section. Drop down your rankings, your favorite, your least favorite Underworld movies, and we'll discuss them down there. And until next time, guys, thanks for watching.